Which countries' currencies died 3 times? Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela. Even though the reasons were different, they all ended at the same point. The money first lost its value, then it collapsed. America is repeating almost the exact same steps these countries took. Will its fate be the same? To understand this, we must look at these 3 collapses and understand them. In all 3 countries, people never realized the collapse had begun. At first, the government said, "This is temporary." When things got serious, they said, "We're bringing it under control." No problem. And when nothing worked, they said, "This is a very different situation, but we are different, we will handle it." Until the money, everything people worked for, saved, invested, their future, their dreams, their hopes, evaporated in one night. Now the same sentences are being said in America and the American people, because the propaganda is so constant and so good, have become so convinced that they don't want to believe there could be deception or illusion on such a big stage. Hopefully, the correct outcome will be the one they believe. But history and mathematics never lie. The same numbers are repeating. The same signals are appearing. And on the death line that history has drawn 3 times before, the American economy, which is presented as the world's superpower, is now walking in almost the same footsteps. When we look at where these 3 different collapses stand today compared to America, we see the line clearly. Because the pattern hasn't changed, only the time changed, the continent changed, and the stage became much bigger. The death of money always begins with a small crack, but this crack is not on the surface, it starts from the very center. Because it comes from the center, no one pays attention. The effects have not appeared yet. Just like when COVID was first detected, nobody cared at first. But when the effects became visible, it engulfed the whole world and turned everything into a prison, an isolation zone. This is exactly what happened in Germany. In the early 1920s, the streets still carried the deep scars of a country destroyed by war. Manpower had been lost due to war. Production had collapsed. Tax revenues had fallen. The state treasury had been emptied by expenses and war reparations. The deficit was enormous. The government, saying, "We will overcome this," began printing money. In the early days, no one panicked. People could easily access the newly printed money. The price increases in the market were uncomfortable, but seen as normal after the war. Then the pace increased. Prices began rising faster than anyone expected. Prices that stood still one day were higher the next morning and far higher the next. Bread, which cost 250 marks in January, reached 200 billion marks by the end of the same year. People were bringing wheelbarrows or sacks full of money just to buy one loaf of bread. This was not just a price increase. Society's psychology began to break. People ran to the markets the moment they received their salaries, because if they waited until evening, or the next day, their money would lose half its value. Money itself stopped being value. Banknotes were not even worth toilet paper, because you needed 4 or 5 times the volume of banknotes to buy one roll of toilet paper. People started using banknotes as kindling to light stoves. This happened in Germany. When a country's money dies, not only does the economy collapse, not only does daily life collapse, but people's belief in the future also collapses. 80 years after Germany, the same cycle began again, this time in Zimbabwe. The country's possession of rich lands didn't matter. Wrong agricultural policies destroyed production, exports collapsed, and collected tax revenues evaporated. After a while, the state treasury dried up just like in Germany. The government once again applied the same problematic solution by saying, "We will handle this. There is no crisis." Just like Germany, it was the same, printing money. But Zimbabwe's collapse happened even faster than Germany's, because today, compared to the past, reaching, learning, and knowing everything is easier and faster thanks to technology. Back in Germany's time, there were no TVs. The fastest tools were newspapers and limited radio communication. But during Zimbabwe's era, TVs were in every home and any event broke out immediately or the next day. That's why the crisis spread much faster than in Germany. Prices first increased yearly, then monthly, then weekly, and then they started rising twice, even within the same day. Price tags in markets were constantly changing. In fact, during this crisis environment, because production stopped, it was impossible to find anything in the stores. When the state printed 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, no one was surprised, because everyone had already understood that the money was dead. Store shelves stayed empty, people couldn't find food, and at one point people even began bartering, filling up car tanks not with money but with chocolate or food, because the money was dying every hour. Within 1 hour, money lost half its value. This was not just an economic collapse. People were fleeing the country. Venezuela looked different, but even though it seemed different, the outcome was always the same. The country was rich in oil, meaning they were blessed with a huge buried treasure. No one could even imagine that a country with so much oil would face such an end. But the deadly pattern appeared once again. The government, relying on oil revenues, increased spending. Debt grew, and as always, the deficit began to be covered by printing money. At first, no one noticed the threat, because cash flow was somehow being maintained. The small increases on price tags were underestimated with the usual temporary phrase used by the government to keep the people asleep. But the familiar ending began once more. Shelves started emptying. Power outages, frustrated, hopeless faces waiting in market lines, people searching for food in the garbage. The death of money was experienced in this country in its most painful form. But the public's reaction was harsher, because millions of people left the country. Those who remained tried not to protect their salaries, but to protect their lives, to simply survive. In short, what happened here was that money lost its value and died. These 3 countries, 3 different geographies, 3 different political structures, but the death line is the same. The death of money always progresses slowly at first, then reaches an acceleration point, and after that point nothing can be stopped. In Germany, the acceleration point was war reparations. In Zimbabwe, it was the collapse of production. In Venezuela, it was the drying up of oil revenue. Different triggers, but all with the same result. And the steps America is taking today, the economy it has built on top of debt, almost perfectly match every dangerous step that should not be taken in these 3 stories. The current account deficit is growing. The money supply is exploding. Prices, because they can no longer be controlled, are slowly trending upward, and the government tells the public this situation is temporary. Leaders say there's nothing to panic about. Everything is under control. Whether the measures they take will work or not, history will show us. But collapse patterns follow mathematics, not intentions. So what is the step or phase that comes after money dies? After all, everything can collapse in a single day. But before it collapses, what are the other signs that show it is coming? The answer is simple, not the death of money, because the money is already dead, but the moment the deposits die. If there is anything as destructive as a currency dying, it is the access to that currency being cut off overnight. Hyperinflation erodes money so quickly that people don't even realize it. It happens instantly and constantly. After this stage, the thing that dies is no longer the currency, but the banking system itself. And that is what pulls the money away from you completely. Cyprus, Greece, and Lebanon, 3 countries, 3 different systems, 3 different crises. But they all revealed the same truth. The money you placed in the bank with your own hands is no longer yours. It is yours only as long as the system allows it to be. Cyprus was the first modern example of this. In 2013, when people woke up one morning, the banks were closed. No announcement, no warning. ATMs were locked, branches were sealed. The country had enlarged its banking system, but that growth was not due to internal production or tourism. It had been inflated with outside borrowed money, hiding the fragility inside. Banks had taken on far more risk than they could carry or repair. And the day that risk exploded, the bill wasn't paid by the state, but by the deposit holders, the public. When the banks reopened, what did it matter anymore? Nearly half of the money people had in their accounts, their own money, was gone. Stolen. Taken. The public was, in a disguised way, robbed. But because it was done under a legal cover, no one could object. But this was the legal form of theft. And of course, what did the leaders say? Again, to lull and deceive the people. They said it was the necessary cost for financial stability. The state and the bank said the same sentence. We had to save the system. If there was one true thing, it was this. The system that created the problem was saved, and the millions of people living under that system paid the price by losing half of their wealth overnight. Those who didn't learn from this, and who were like siblings to Cyprus, faced the same fate just 2 years later. The same dark scene unfolded in Greece, but this time with a different method. Here, the issue wasn't money disappearing. It wasn't the public losing half their funds. This time, the method was imprisoning the money. Banks were deliberately closed. ATMs were limited to extremely low daily withdrawal limits, so the public could not access their money whenever, however, or in whatever amount they wanted. Like this, a citizen's access to their own money, only 60 euros. If they wanted to withdraw again, the wait time wasn't 1 day or 1 week. It was months. Even if someone was among the richest in the country, which didn't matter because they had already prepared beforehand, the situation was the same. Even if a regular citizen had 1 million euros in their account, it didn't matter. The money sitting in the vault was theirs, but using it was forbidden. In Greece, people could no longer plan or make their grocery shopping. Shopkeepers couldn't buy products from wholesalers because they couldn't transfer money. Families couldn't pay their children's school fees. Some left the country. This wasn't about rising prices. It wasn't hyperinflation. This was the collapse where the bank shuts the door in your face and says, "Your money is inside, but don't worry. You are outside and you won't use it as you wish." And this collapse broke the people's trust in the banking system forever. From that day until today, Greeks have never trusted their banking system the same way again. Lebanon, meanwhile, became the stage for the heaviest deposit collapse in modern history. For 20 years, this country had a banking system known as the Switzerland of the Middle East. The government kept borrowing, the banks kept buying this debt, and deposits became the fuel of this cycle. But there was a problem in the system. Even though it looked solid from the outside, what was actually running inside was a Ponzi scheme. And to summarize a Ponzi scheme, someone must enter the system so that those at the top can profit from the new money coming in. That's the essence of a Ponzi structure. But in 2019, this scheme collapsed. Banks first introduced small restrictions, a weekly withdrawal limit, then a daily limit. And those small restrictions turned into massive steps. People could barely touch the money in their own accounts. People who saw millions on their account screens could withdraw only $200 per week. Later, this amount dropped further, then $100, then $50. And at one point, because no new money was entering the system and the withdrawn money could no longer be replaced inside the banks, the system collapsed. People began raiding bank branches with guns to retrieve their own money, taking employees hostage and risking lives. But even this created tragic comic scenes. The public was a victim, but in trying to fix their victimhood, they created new victims. Yet no one was seen as a criminal. The stories of these three countries look different, but they all lead to the same point. When the banking system collapses, money does not lose its value. It already lost it. But now the money disappears entirely. And this disappearance does not happen with loud explosions. Most of the time it happens with a single government decision, a single signature. Just like in the last three country examples we mentioned, the common point of these countries was not hyperinflation. The common point here is not a currency collapsing. This is the stage where accessing the already dead or already worthless currency collapses. To give a simple analogy that's easy to understand, It's like someone having a strong and powerful friend who over time becomes weak and eventually dies. Money is the same. It dies. But later, when you want to claim the body to say your last goodbye or fulfill your final duty, authorities tell you that you cannot take the body, cannot see it, or must go through endless procedures. This is exactly like the situation where your access to dead money is restricted or eliminated. And today, the danger America is approaching is exactly this second type of collapse. Because for the first time in history, the risk of hyperinflation is combined with the risk of a bail-in. In other words, money can both lose value and also be trapped inside the bank, unreachable. The death of money and the death of deposits are two completely different things. But today, these two lines are intersecting for the first time. So what is happening in America? The place where the two death lines now cross. This combination is the most dangerous form of the deadly pattern. America experienced the first line through the massive jump in money supply. History has warned humans 3 times. When the money supply rises above a certain speed, the loss of value in money becomes unstoppable. What happened in the US after 2020 is beyond the pre-crisis pace of Germany, Zimbabwe, and Venezuela. To explain this more clearly, we'll move with some basic numerical facts so everything stays simple and easy to understand. In just the last 2 years, the amount of money circulating globally grew by 40%. Whether this happened through government actions or artificial money creation doesn't matter. The increase changes the result. This rise is not normal expansion. It is pressure pushing against the walls of the financial system. Inflation officially peaked at 9.1%. This is the "don't worry, everything is fine" picture drawn by the authorities, a picture too artificial to be real. The true picture is revealed by the real prices the public pays, which paints a much sharper and harsher reality. Even if inflation appears to have fallen, the money supply is still high and public debt is still climbing. This means hyperinflation hasn't happened, but the acceleration toward it is increasing. America's second line is on the banking side. In the past, access to money was cut off in 3 countries. Governments restricted or completely blocked access to money that wasn't theirs but belonged to the public. We saw how they legally granted themselves the authority to seize and manage deposits. By following this mechanism, the US has now obtained the official authority to do the same, and it is now law. The bail-in authority that has been in effect since 2010 means that deposits can be converted into bank capital. This sentence sounds simple, but its impact is massive. What does it really mean? This law tells the public, in the US, your deposit accounts can be considered the property of the bank in a crisis, and the bank has full authority to use or allocate them. The only difference, softened to look less extreme, is this. The FDIC cannot guarantee that every dollar shown in your account is actually usable. It only guarantees up to $250,000. Everything above that, in a systemic collapse, can be used to keep the bank alive. Most regional banks in the US are sitting on massive losses caused by interest rate hikes. In 2023, 3 banks collapsed because of this, and hundreds are fragile. As the bonds held by banks lose value, the need for liquidity rises. If a rapid outflow of deposits occurs, the system cannot handle it. This new policy was created to prevent exactly that. And we now understand why it was created. Because collapse is approaching, and the government, seeing this, began taking steps to protect the system, not the public. This is no longer a conspiracy theory. Silicon Valley Bank lost $42 billion in 24 hours. Long ago, what happened in 1 to 2 months became 1 to 2 weeks, then 1 to 2 days. Now, in the digital age, a bank's survival time is measured not in days, but in hours. Money escapes instantly with a tap on a phone screen. The US is now trapped between 2 lines. The money supply expanded, value is under pressure. Banks weakened, access is under pressure. When these 2 pressures occur simultaneously, a type of rupture emerges that history has never seen before. and the US's magnitude is not limited to its own borders. Even though its old solo dominance is over, it is still one of the key actors directing the world economy. This makes the rupture more dangerous because the system is now global. The dollar is not just America's currency, it's the world's currency. If its value dies, the entire world is affected. If access dies, the entire world locks up. That's why, unlike previous crises that only affected a country and its neighbors, an American crisis would not stop at its borders. It would be global. And today, beyond the two major signs that these patterns are merging, the other signs are clear. Over $500 billion in unrealized losses on bank balance sheets. Only a fraction of the $18 trillion in deposits being insured. The money supply still far above pre-pandemic levels. Rising government debt and repeated spending packages. Prices refusing to fall despite the inflation is under control narrative. America is walking both paths at once. The path that kills the value of your money and the path that locks your money inside the bank. History has shown us crises and collapses like this before, but never in a power this large, this global, this interconnected. And this combination points to a critical question. Is it more dangerous to own money that is losing value, or money you can't access at all? Today, the US cannot answer this question. Call it blindness or arrogance. The situation is what it is. But one truth remains. The system will teach everyone the answer very soon, by making them live it. If you liked it or found it helpful, you can subscribe, like, or share. The choice is yours. See you in the next video.